Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. So good to have you with us on this Tuesday afternoon here on the East Coast, late Tuesday morning there out west. We're broadcasting as we always do from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. And as things stand, it is once again another double launch day for SpaceX. Notably, the company is preparing to launch a Falcon 9 rocket from Vandenberg Space Force Base up first, which of course is why we're on the air with you right now. And then a little bit later on, they have plans for one more bite at the apple, at least today, to launch their more than 400-foot tall Starship rocket from South Texas in the town of Starbase. You're looking live right now, thanks to our friends at Lab Padre, at the vehicle still standing tall in the launch position, ready and eagerly waiting for its departure. Of course, the first launch attempt on Sunday was stymied by a ground systems issue connected to the liquid oxygen lines that fuel the ship upper stage. And then yesterday, some unfortunate weather prevented SpaceX from their launch attempt then. Anvil cloud that was just too close to the pad and wasn't going to clear in time based off of when SpaceX began fueling made a safe launch attempt yesterday nigh impossible. So, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, as Stephen was just calling my attention to behind the scenes. By the way, our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, running the technical operations of today's broadcast. Liquid oxygen resupply truck just arrived there at Starbase. You can see a row of them that are down the bottom left-hand corner behind that line of concrete barriers. You can see him adjusting his vehicle and getting into the right parking positions. So teams are still loading up on locks. There's a vehicle that is now departing the pad. It's currently 1:26 p.m. Central Time there in southern Texas. Believe this is a little bit later than we saw them clear the pad yesterday. SpaceX still at this point in time counting down towards flight at the beginning of the window, which opens up at 6:30 p.m. So we'll keep our eyes here on the pad for you at Starbase, let you know when the road closure, or the pad clear, I should say, is put in place. Not seeing a lot of customer traffic or public traffic there, so the roads may already be closed to the general public. Last couple of launch attempts, the main road closures went up at around 11 a.m. Central Time, so teams could finalize their fueling operations and get into the flow of actually fueling the Starship rocket. We will, of course, have live coverage of this mission beginning about 2 hours prior to liftoff, so be sure to join us once again for our dedicated live stream right here on YouTube. No need to go anywhere. Just go ahead and maybe bookmark that, save to your watch later list, and we'll welcome you back in for that coverage when SpaceX is ready to get going. Meanwhile, though, they are ready to get going out at Vandenberg Space Force Base. We do know that fueling is underway on the Falcon 9 rocket set to launch the NAOS mission, government and military payload that was built by OHB Italia on behalf of the government of Luxembourg. During our coverage, of course, you can always head over to our website, spaceflightnow.com, and read our preview of the story. Today's mission will be a rideshare flight, sending a host of satellites alongside this to the low Earth orbit plan. With SpaceX fueling its Falcon 9 rocket at the moment, they are currently 25 minutes away from liftoff at 11:53 a.m. Pacific, 2:53 p.m. Eastern, 18:53 UTC. So looking to hit the opening of today's 27-minute long window. Now, while SpaceX, for those of you who popped over to their launch page, will note that they did publish a launch timeline for today's mission. It's unclear if we'll actually get to see any views of the Falcon 9's upper stage. There's a couple of reasons that we suspect that that may be the case, which we'll get into in just a moment. But first, I want to thank our moderators in the chat for helping us out with today's coverage. So thanks to Jeff Hansen and Rick Donner for being on board for this beginning of this first broadcast, potentially of 2 today. You can help make the mods' lives just a little bit easier by following the rules of our chat. We ask that you hold off on typing in all caps and refrain from delving into overt politics and religion. Emojis are fine, but we ask that you don't create a big block of emojis that take up a large chunk of the chat so that other folks can have their virtual voices heard as well. Also, if you would be so kind as to converse in English so that our moderators can respond as appropriate. Most importantly, though, be sure to treat each other with the kindness and respect that you yourself would like to be treated. All that being the case, we'll get along swimmingly today. This and every launch attempt are made possible in no small part by our wonderful channel members here on YouTube that provide ongoing support for what we do here at Spaceflight now. So thanks to folks like The Rocket Girl, Adam Hart, Cumulus Granatus, Montana Parker, Peter Booth, and many others. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, which is shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to our member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. Last little bit of housekeeping. If you have a comment or question about this mission or other goings-on in the realm of space or spaceflight, you can use the YouTube Super Chat feature to have your comment or query elevated for discussion. And not only will you be giving us some interesting things to talk about as we cruise on through the count, but you'll also be supporting what we do here at Spaceflight Now, and that, my friends, is always greatly appreciated. With all that out of the way, we're less than 22 minutes out from the planned liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket. We are hearing that the skies are clearing down at Vandenberg, so conditions certainly ripe for a good launch attempt today. As we're looking out at this satellite data from the NOAA Goes West satellite, you can see at the end of the loop there were some clouds hanging over Vandenberg, but they are clearing, so we should have really nice views of ascent today, especially for folks that are in the vicinity of Vandenberg and a little bit further on south. This mission is flying a southerly trajectory, and we'll bring up that launch trajectory here in just a moment or two. But first, want to go ahead and give folks a look at the launch timeline that we've got on tap for you today. We'll quickly speed through the milestones that have already come and gone and get you caught up to what is still left for SpaceX. The go-ahead for prop load was given at about the T-minus 38-minute mark, and fueling of the Falcon 9 rocket started at T-minus 35 minutes, with liquid oxygen flowing on board the Falcon 9's first stage, and that RP-1, which is a rocket-grade kerosene, beginning tanking on the first and second stages. T-minus 30 minutes is when SpaceX began to load a cryogenic helium onto the pressure vessels for the first stage. Same was true on the second stage, about 5 minutes afterwards. That helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. Just about 3 minutes ago, second stage RP-1 loading wrapped up. At T-minus 20 minutes and 50 seconds, the most recent milestone we've just come through. That's when the chill of the feed lines there began, the strong back chill down. Had we eyes on the Falcon 9 rocket at this point, we would be seeing the so-called big vent as the feed lines are conditioned ahead of second stage LOX load. The big vent will last about 4 minutes in duration, and based off of the timing of the SpaceX broadcast beginning, we may catch just the tail end of the big vent, but more than likely we'll pick up a little bit closer to second stage liquid oxygen load getting underway. Moving forward at T-minus 7 minutes is when the Falcon 9 engine chill sequence begins. SpaceX flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, helping to protect those engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. T-minus 6 minutes, the first stage RP-1 tank is full. At T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the retraction of the strong back away from the Falcon 9 rocket. First, the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings will open up, and then that strong back structure, otherwise referred to as the transporter erector, will recline about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket, and will stay in that position up to and through liftoff. 3 minutes before flight, the first stage liquid oxygen tank is full. Same is true on the second stage, about a minute afterwards. At that point, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds before takeoff, the Falcon 9 rocket will enter into its automated sequence. We'll hear the call that it's gone into startup. Control of the countdown at that point is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers. At the same time, the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. The SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch 45 seconds before takeoff. The engine ignition command will be issued at T-minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, command will be given for the hold down clamps to release that Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff, coming up again at 11:53 a.m. Pacific, 2:53 p.m. Eastern, 18:53 UTC for our friends around the world, or just about 17.5 minutes from where we stand now. Just about 30 seconds remaining on the big vent out at Vandenberg. Today's mission does represent a good opportunity for us to talk about SpaceX's Falcon 9 frequent flyers, as the currently number 3 booster in the SpaceX roster is getting ready to tie B-1071 for the most flights for SpaceX at 27. Here's the rest of the list right now. Of course, later on this week, we're expecting to see a Falcon 9 flight with the Starlink 10-56 mission, which will be booster 1067 flying for a record-setting 30th time, the first to do so. Here's a look at the launches so far on the year. The CRS-33 mission was SpaceX's 103rd launch of 2025. Looking for launch number 104 in just about 16 minutes. Before we get our eyes on the Falcon 9 rocket, let's go ahead and take a quick peek at the trajectory for today's mission. As mentioned, the Falcon 9 rocket, once it does depart Space Launch Complex 4 East there at Vandenberg Space Force Base, will fly in a southerly trajectory, heading away from the California coastline. First stage booster is going to be performing a flip and a boost back and head towards a touchdown at landing zone 4, which, if successful, will be just the 28th time that we've had a landing out at LZ4. This will also be SpaceX's 94th land landing. The company is also, as you can tell by the graphic, interested in recovering the payload fairings for today's flight, and will endeavor to recover them once they splash down in the waters of the Pacific Ocean on board one of their recovery vessels. They'll be brought in through the port of Long Beach and then off to Vandenberg, where they will be refurbished and turned around for future flights. SpaceX has, of course, a lot of missions on this booster, so we're just going to flash right through these and call out a couple of highlights as we see them come up. You've got NASA's Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART, that launched back in November of 2021. Also worth noting in this selection, the Sentinel-6 Michael Frelich and Transporter 7. This particular booster has also launched a trio of missions for the National Reconnaissance Office. And most recently flew on June 4th of 2025. And we do have views on the Falcon 9 rocket. A couple of things worth noting here as we see the vehicle. So, actually two things. Number one, we were correct in our assumption that we will not be seeing any of the deployments today at the request of the manufacturer of the primary satellite, which is OHB Italia, on behalf of the government of Luxembourg. And that's because it is a payload that is launching on behalf of the Luxembourg government and military. The other reason we thought that we were not going to be seeing any views of the satellites on this mission is because Exo Launch, one of the companies that helped manifest a series of 6 satellites on board this mission. Exo Launch said, and I'll quote, "On this mission, Exo Launch will deploy 2 satellites for an undisclosed U.S. customer via its carbonic separation systems under a dedicated hardware and integration services contract in continuation of the company's long-term collaboration," end quote. So you put that together with the purpose of the primary satellite on this mission, and you get the recipe where SpaceX did share a good chunk of their timeline with the public, but we will not see views of the deployment sequence today, which will last more than an hour. Also worth noting, you see the gray band on the Falcon 9's second stage. That's an indication of a mission extension kit, essentially allowing further protection of the propellant on board the Falcon 9's second stage, an indication of some long coast phase where the upper stage would either be in the sun for a long period of time or perhaps in the Earth's shadow. And so to keep the propellant at the correct temperature, that thermal protection kit is added on some Falcon 9 flights, or Falcon Heavy flights, as we've seen. For those in the area of Vandenberg, as we mentioned before, this is a return to landing site operation, so you may hear a sonic boom as the first stage, tail number 1063, comes back in for a landing at LZ4, and there's a live view of that landing pad. Taking a look at our live chat here, I want to thank channel member moderator Jeff Hansen for a very generous $10 super chat. Jeff says, "Go Vandy, go SpaceX, go Falcon 9, go NAOS, Godspeed 1063. 1063, of course, is the tail number for this particular first stage booster. SpaceX notes that there will be 3 burns of the upper stage engine before the final deployment that it lists on its website, the FFLY3, or the Fly 3 satellite. That is from a photo of Pixel Space. Oh, interesting. I honestly didn't expect that we would see a photo like this, given that they don't want views of deployment during the mission. Could be that the undisclosed U.S. customer that I just mentioned from Exolaunch are on the other side, and the fact that SpaceX toggles its camera views during deployment might belie something that they don't want to see, or perhaps the angle of the onboard camera that would show deployment would show something that the customer or one of the customers didn't want to have visible. As you can see, SpaceX is just about 9 minutes away from the flight of this Falcon 9 rocket. SpaceX commentator notes that the Falcon 9 is in good health. Spacecraft on board also healthy today. Less than 2 minutes from now, SpaceX will perform the engine chill sequence, which is coming up at about T-minus 7 minutes. Beautiful view of the Falcon 9 rocket. One other milestone that I want to note that's coming up, not on this specific mission, but looking towards the future. SpaceX is on the cusp of its 500th booster landing to date. A good landing today would be booster landing number 493. Also, the next Falcon 9 to touch down on a drone ship, which as things stand right now, is expected to be the Starlink 10-56 mission. Assuming that doesn't slide to the right. Yep, 1056 is up next. And I think I actually misspoke a little bit earlier in the broadcast. The 1056 mission has a booster flying for its second time. The Starlink 10-11 mission, which is flying before 2 a.m. on Thursday morning, that's the one with 1067 on board, which is flying for its 30th time. So just want to correct myself there. But assuming a good landing during the 1056 mission, that will be SpaceX's 400th drone ship landing. Call for engine chill. So far, it's been a quiet and nominal countdown for SpaceX. SpaceX commentator notes that, as you might have guessed by looking out around the pad, they have favorable launch weather conditions today, which is certainly better than we saw yesterday down at Starbase. Hopefully, weather conditions down in Starbase, Texas will be more favorable for a launch today. And Stage 1 RP-1 loading has now wrapped up. Coming up next at about T-minus 4 minutes and 30 seconds will be the start of the strong back retraction sequence. Tanks will begin to pressurize for that just past the 5-minute mark. With just under 5.5 minutes to go, want to thank the more than 3,200 of you who are watching along with us live today. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking that like button and sharing the stream to allow more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage.
Pressurizing for strong back retract.
Call for pressurization for a strong back retraction, as you just heard. That'll get into motion in about 15 seconds.
On your screen, you can see we have beautiful weather conditions.
Strong back retract has started.
Coming up next, you'll see the clamp arms. Well, it's a little hard to see through the vapor there, but you can just make out the clamp arms opening up from around the Falcon 9's second stage. And then that large gray structure just beyond the rocket, the strong back, now in motion away from the rocket. Here at Vandenberg, it reclines 13 degrees away from the vehicle and stays in that position up to and through liftoff, unlike the strong backs here at the Kennedy Space Center at Launch Complex 39A and over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station's Pad 40. Those are newer versions of this strong back system. Coming up in now less than 30 seconds, the first stage liquid oxygen load process should be complete.
Coming up next, we'll shortly be hearing confirmation of Stage 1 LOX loading completion.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
And they're a good call out. We'll hear a similar call in now less than a minute at around the 2-minute mark for Stage 2 LOX load being complete. As we're awaiting that call, I want to thank my mother, Mary Robinson, for joining us in the broadcast with a very generous $20 super chat. Thank you, Mom. Who says good morning from Rancho Cordova, part of the greater Sacramento area. And good afternoon from Florida Space Coast. Also want to thank Wolverine Warlord for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships, one of our pre-existing channel members. Thank you, Wolverine. And to our 5 newest gifted members, welcome aboard. Glad to have you with us. Be sure to thank Wolverine in the live chat if you haven't already.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And with that call, the Falcon 9 rocket is now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. Shortly, we'll see, actually just out of frame now, the start of the ground gas closeouts, which are SpaceX releasing the liquid oxygen remaining in the feed lines there. Now, venting that out.
Gas closeout here refers to venting of the gaseous systems, like topping off the tanks and then sealing vents to maintain pressure.
Coming up on the final minute before liftoff, when the Falcon 9 will enter into its automated sequence, we'll hear that call, and the Falcon 9 being in startup.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And with that good call, we're just awaiting the SpaceX launch director to give their final go for launch, coming up in about 5 seconds.
LD is go for launch.
And with that final go for launch call, we're now less than 10 seconds away from seeing this Falcon fly. So let's go ahead and step back on our commentary, and we'll be back with you on the other side of liftoff.
T-minus 3 seconds. T minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And liftoff of Falcon 9. Go, SpaceX, go now.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
At T plus 30 seconds and counting, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 4E, and in just a moment we'll throttle the engines down in preparation for max Q, a period of maximum aerodynamic pressure. This is a critical moment during flight because the combined stresses
Telemetry nominal.
caused by Falcon 9 accelerating through the atmosphere and the ambient static pressure are at their greatest.
Falcon 9 is supersonic. Max Q.
The rocket has just passed through max Q, again where it experiences the greatest mechanical stress during flight. You can track our progress to orbit by watching
And
the
back chill.
left corner of your display showing first stage, velocity, and altitude. Now, we have several events coming up in quick succession, and we should hear these all called out by mission control, starting with main engine cutoff, or MECO, then stage separation, stage 1 flip, second engine start, and the start of boost back burn. Main engine cutoff is where we shut down all 9 Merlin 1D
Trajectory
engines
nominal.
on the first stage. Stage separation is when the first and second stages of Falcon 9 separate from one another. Stage 1 flip is when the booster uses its nitrogen gas thrusters to flip the booster around. And depending on the mission, it will perform a fast or slow flip. Today will be a fast flip, returning to the landing site on land. Second engine start will relight the MVAC engine, and a few seconds later, the boost back burn will begin as the booster heads towards landing zone at Vandenberg.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
Stage 1 boost back startup.
And there we heard the callouts for a successful main engine cutoff, stage separation, stage 1 flip, and second engine start 1, as well as the start of boost back burn. We're now waiting for fairing deployment on the second stage. Oh,
Fairing separation confirmed.
great views here on your screen, and confirmation of fairing separation.
And you can see one of those payload fairings making its way back down to the waters of the Pacific Ocean now. Coming up to the end of the boost back burn momentarily.
Stage 1 boost back shutdown.
And with the conclusion of the boost back burn, the first stage entry burn is now less than 3 minutes away. SpaceX will use 3 out of the 9 Merlin engines at the base of the booster to begin to slow it down. The hypersonic grid fins now deploying following the end of that boost back burn, which help with the steering of the Falcon first stage. Those bursts that you're seeing as well, those are the cold gas thrusters, which help the booster control its attitude or positioning as it orients itself towards a return to California or a touchdown at landing zone 4. That'll happen just before the 8-minute mark, or right around the 8-minute mark in this flight. The booster topping out at about 143 kilometers in altitude and is now making its descent back towards Vandenberg. The entry burn is set to last just about 20 seconds in duration.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And a good start to that entry burn, which again will last right around 20 seconds or so.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And a good conclusion of that entry burn, a nice view of California as B-1063 continues to make its descent towards landing zone 4. Coming up next will be the start of the landing burn, which will kick off in about 15 seconds or so. Still seeing some really nice upper stage views as well.
The landing burn will be the final burn of the Falcon 9 booster.
Stage 1 transonic.
And it's used to reduce the remaining speed of the vehicle for a gentle and precise landing.
Stage 1 and Stage 2 FTS have saved.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Landing burn has begun on the Falcon 9 first stage. This is the final burn the booster will perform before touching down.
Landing light deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And there you saw and heard the call out for successful landing of our Falcon 9 rocket. Again, this was the 27th launch and landing for this first stage. Now coming up next, we'll be hearing a call out for second engine cutoff 1, or SECO 1, which will be the shutdown of the second stage MVAC engine. After that, we'll be looking for confirmation of good orbital insertion.
Stage 2 has entered terminal guidance.
Again, we are awaiting second engine cutoff and confirmation
MVAC shutdown.
of good orbital insertion.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And we have confirmation of nominal orbital insertion. Now, in less than 2 minutes, we should see our first payload deployments of the mission. The first payload is our primary payload for this mission, NAOS, and that will be followed by 2 payloads for Planet, Pelican 3 and Pelican 4. NAOS was developed by OHB Italia for Luxembourg Defense.
I want to
The satellite
apologize
is
to our
equipped with a
viewers.
state-of-the-art
Apparently, SpaceX
high-resolution
is going to
optical
be
camera,
clearly
enabling
showing
detailed
views
Earth imagery
of the
to support
satellites here.
Luxembourg's
They may
institutional,
go through the full
environmental,
deployment
and security
sequence.
applications.
We'll, of course, continue on with our
NAOS will
broadcast
provide
if that's the case.
high-definition images from low Earth orbit, and allowing the Luxembourg government to obtain key satellite data for public administration, land monitoring, and
Typically,
national
we would
resilience
also
objectives.
see payload fairing separation,
Planet
which
is a
we
leading
didn't
provider
see,
of
which
daily data and insights
seemed
around
to
Earth,
suggest that they
and is
were
launching 2 additional high-resolution
potentially not showing upper
AI-enabled
stage
Pelican
views
satellites.
of live deployment.
Equipped with NVIDIA Jetson AI on
The
board, these satellites
satellite,
will
once
continue
they toggle
to
back to the
expand
other
Planet's
side,
capabilities
those
to
2
provide
white
rapid,
ones,
on-demand
those were
imagery to their
Planet's
customers
Pelican
across a range of
satellites.
industries, from defense and intelligence
You
to
see the one
agriculture
with the
and
sort of
disaster
white
response.
coverings that are on the left-hand side of your screen, and then just almost out of frame on the right-hand side. Those are the Pelican 3 and 4 satellites. At the top of the stack, that
now,
is
at
the
this time, we
NAOS
are awaiting
payload.
the first of the 3 deployments in this group, which will be our primary payload for today,
NAOS is first to deploy. That's coming up.
And this should be coming up shortly within the next.
Now separation confirmed.
Great confirmation of the NAOS separation and a beautiful view on screen.
Pelican 3, separation confirmed.
Pelican 4, separation confirmed.
Great confirmation of successful separation for the NAOS, Pelican 3, and Pelican 4 payloads. Now, our mission is not over yet. We have more payloads to deploy, but first, the second stage is embarking on a coast phase, and that will last about 40 minutes before the MVAC engine relights for a second time, also known as SES-2, and this will be at about T plus 53 minutes and 3 seconds. So we're going to take a pause and leave you with some space jams, and we'll see you back here just after T plus 50 minutes for second engine start 2.
And in a similar fashion, we too are also going to pull back on our commentary. Apologies for talking simultaneously with the SpaceX commentator. A little bit of audio mix-up. We'll go ahead and leave you with our space tunes, and we'll join with you back before the second burn on the Falcon 9's upper stage. You're watching Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the NAOS satellite launch, along with multiple other rideshare payloads. We'll come to those space jams in just a second, but first want to check in with things down at Starbase. in southern Texas. As you can see, there are still some vehicles there that are transporting liquid oxygen to help fuel the Falcon 9 rocket there at Pad A. As of now, SpaceX is still tracking towards a launch of its 10th flight of Starship in about a little less than 4.5 hours from now, with a window that opens at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 23:30 UTC, weather permitting, and assuming there are no further technical snafus on the ground system or the rocket itself. Coming back to the mission at hand, at about T plus 52 minutes and 34 seconds, there will be a roughly 4-second long burn of the upper stage engine. There will be one more raising burn to help circularize the orbit at about T plus 1 hour, 5 minutes and 55 seconds. That too will last about 4 seconds in duration. And that'll set up the next deployment sequence, which will begin with Capella Space and its Acadia 6 satellite. And you've got a trio of satellites called Fireflies. Those are from Pixel Space. These are hyperspectral Earth imaging satellites. According to the company, with the addition of these satellites in orbit, they will complete phase 1 of Pixel's constellation, which consists of a 6-satellite network in sun-synchronous low Earth orbit at 550 kilometers in altitude. Each of those satellites weighs about 50 kilograms, and they have advanced sensors that will help with further Earth imaging. Also on board is the LEAP-1 satellite, built off of Daruva Space's P-30 satellite bus, and this is the first commercial mission for this company based in India. Alrighty, and now we've got those space jams cranked up for you, so let's go ahead and bring those in. You're watching Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the NAOS mission. We'll be back with you with additional commentary ahead of burn number 2 on the Falcon 9's upper stage.
of the game. It's a rich thing.
coming up on the start of the second burn of the upper stage engine momentarily. Let's listen in.
And there you saw that second engine start 2, just a brief burn, about 3 seconds. So with the second stage
Good burn
engine
too.
cutoff, we're going to take another quick break and we'll return for that third start of the second stage engine and our final payload deployments of the mission. We'll be back around the T+1 hour 5-minute mark, and we'll see you soon.
And as you just heard, there's a third burn of the upper stage engine coming up, beginning about T+1 hour, 5 minutes, 55 seconds into today's flight. That burn also will last just a handful of seconds, and then SpaceX will get into the deployment sequence with the remaining satellites on board, beginning with Capella Space's Acadia 6. We're going to return for a few minutes now as well to our space tunes. As you can see, though, out at Starbase, things are still gearing up towards the launch of Starship Flight 10, coming up just a little bit later on this afternoon. Meanwhile, you're watching live coverage of the NAOS mission, the NAOS mission. Let's turn you back to those space tunes. Time now T plus 1 hour, 5 minutes, 15 seconds and counting. There's one more burn coming up on that upper stage engine. Just a few seconds in duration. Let's go ahead and listen in for those callouts.
If you're just joining us so far in today's mission, we did have an on-time liftoff at 11:53 a.m. Pacific time and a successful relanding of our first stage booster. We successfully deployed the NAOS payload on behalf of OHB Italia, as well as Planet's Pelican 3 and Pelican 4 payloads. Now we still have 5 more payload deployments coming up in quick succession, and those will be following the third burn of the MVAC engine. Now, although this third burn will be brief, keep an eye on the telemetry in the lower right-hand corner of your screen.
Good burn 3.
Now with confirmation of the second engine cutoff 3, coming up next will be our final payload deployments of the mission. Again, we have 5 more deployments today, and those will begin in just about 2 minutes. The first payload to deploy in this final batch will be Acadia 6. ExoLaunch has manifested Acadia 6 for Capella Space, launching into sun-synchronous orbit. This satellite will expand Capella's Acadia series with enhanced imaging and revisit rates, strengthening global synthetic aperture radar coverage. The second to deploy will be Firefly 1. ExoLaunch has manifested this mission 3 Firefly payloads for its customer Pixel. Pixel is building a constellation of hyperspectral imaging satellites to create a health monitor for our planet. With 3 Fireflies already in orbit, today's 3 new additions will expand the constellation's reach, providing vital insights for agriculture, mining, environmental monitoring, and beyond. After Firefly 1, the next deployment will be Leap 1 for Druva Space. As part of Druva's Launching Expeditions for Aspiring Payloads, LEAP initiative, this hosted payload mission carries 2 Australian payloads to orbit, one demonstrating advanced edge computing in space, and the other deploying a next-generation hyperspectral imager for Earth observation. After the final 2 payloads to deploy, today will be Firefly 2 and Firefly 3, which ExoLaunch has manifested for its customer Pixel. Right now, we are standing by for the first deployment of this final batch, which again will be Acadia 6. We should be about 15 seconds or so away from that first deployment. Keep an eye on the view you have there on screen.
First Pixel Firefly deploy confirmed. Druva Space Leap 1, separation confirmed. Acadia 6 separation confirmed. Second Pixel Firefly separation confirmed. Third Pixel Firefly separation confirmed. We have confirmation of all payloads separations.
And there you heard it, confirmation of the deployment for Firefly 1, Leap 1, Acadia 6, Firefly 2, and Firefly 3. Now with these final deployments, we will bring our webcast to a close. Thank you to OHB Italia, ExoLaunch, Planet, and Druva Space for entrusting us with today's mission, as well as the Range for their support. To stay up to date with all of our upcoming missions, be sure to check out spacex.com/launches for schedules and follow @SpaceX on X. We also
And with the good final deployment of that last satellite, SpaceX has successfully deployed all the payloads on board this mission, with the Falcon 9 upper stage cruising over the Mediterranean, as we just saw there. SpaceX commentator also noted, after we muted that commentator, that they are still tracking towards the beginning of the window for Starship Flight 10 from Starbase, Texas. So as soon as we wrap up here, we'll go ahead and get everything ready in order for our live coverage of Starship Flight 10, beginning about 2 hours ahead of the planned liftoff at 6:30 p.m. Central, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. With a good liftoff and landing and deployment of the satellites on this mission. Although the one thing that we had brought up, so just to close the loop since it was never addressed during the SpaceX broadcast, back just a few days ago announcing the payloads that they were involved with on this mission, ExoLaunch did note that there were, quote, 2 satellites for an undisclosed U.S. customer that were going to be deployed via its Carbonix separation systems. So it's unclear exactly what that may have been in reference to, since we never saw or heard any separate payload deployment following, or aside from the ones that SpaceX mentioned during its broadcast that we just heard and saw. So we'll see if we can check back in with the folks at ExoLaunch and get a little more clarity on that, since that's still a bit of a mystery there. Nevertheless, let's go ahead and talk about our mission stats, where things currently stand. This was the 27th flight of Falcon 9 booster, tail number 1063 in the SpaceX fleet. This was SpaceX's 521st Falcon 9 rocket launch to date, the 104th of the year so far. This is SpaceX's 156th orbital launch within the last 365 days, the 143rd from Space Launch Complex 4 East, and the 211th overall orbital flight from this pad as well. Here's a look at the bar chart of where things currently stand for SpaceX and its Falcon family of rockets. Moving on to some recovery stats. Today's touchdown at landing zone 4 was the 28th so far. This was SpaceX's 94th landing on land and the 493rd booster landing to date. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 38th launch of the year from California, the 110th from U.S. soil, the 121st from U.S. rocket company, and the 192nd orbital launch around the world. So far, 5 orbital mishaps have been counted, and here is where our pie chart now currently stands. Once again, we are going to be counting down to the planned launch of Starship with our dedicated coverage beginning a couple hours ahead of liftoff from that pad. So be sure to go ahead and join us for our live coverage of that mission. You can see we're just about 3 hours, 20 minutes, and 20 seconds now ahead of the opening of that window. Look forward to welcoming you all back there, or back here then. And thank you so much for taking the time to be with us for our coverage of this NAOS rideshare mission. I want to thank a few more folks in the live chat before we sign off. Thanks to Chris E. for a $10 super chat, saying thanks to all the great work and dedication. Channel member Deb, also with a $10 super chat, says great coverage, Spaceflight now. Thank you, Deb. Want to thank our moderators in the live chat who've been helping us out today. Thanks to Rick Donner and Jeff Hansen. Appreciate the both of you. Also thanks to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast today. Upon ending of this stream, you'll be rerouted automatically to our Starship live stream, so be sure to either click the watch later notification or just go ahead and leave that tab open and come on back around 2 hours out from liftoff at 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern. Still got a bit to do before we get ready for that launch, so we will stop down for now and see you very, very soon. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.